Tier 10, Solo, DCD Headquarters. This is the kind of mission where one bad decision can end the entire run. The enemies are aggressive, the pressure keeps building, and there isn't much room for mistakes. So, can this striker prototype build handle Escalation Tier 10 completely solo? Let's find out. Hi guys, it's Queenie here, and today we're taking on Escalation Tier 10 completely solo in the Division 2. We're running DCD Headquarters, and this is the full solo run using the escalation modifiers. Before we get started, let's go through the build I'm using. I'm running 4 prototype striker pieces, the mask, holster, knees and gloves. For the chest piece, I'm using Unit Allies prototype with equalizer set up with perfect Obliterate. The backpack is Ceska prototype with Vigilance. Every prototype piece has the echo bonus, which adds another layer to the build. For weapons, I am using a Lexington with Killer as my secondary weapon, and my primary is the MK46 with Frenzy. For my skills, I'm running the Decoy and Reviver Hive. The Decoy is really useful with enemies starting to focus me. It gives me a chance to reposition, reload and create a better angle without every enemy shooting directly at me. Reviver Hive is my safety net for solo run. Hopefully I won't need it, but at Tier 10 it's always better to have that extra chance available. This build isn't about rushing blindly. I'm trying to keep the pressure on, build momentum, use cover properly and avoid taking unnecessary damage. Right, let's get into it. First area is fairly straightforward, but I'm still taking my time before committing to the fight. I don't want the enemies attacking from every direction, so I'm going to try to control the entrance and deal with anything pushing forward first. The Lexington gives me good damage for those opening encounters, while the MK46 gives me another option when I want sustained fire. I'm also checking the magazine before moving forward. At Tier 10, entering the next room while unprepared can cause problems very quickly. We're not trying to get a fast clear time here. The aim is to complete the mission without giving the enemies an easy opportunity to overwhelm us.
Active terminal detected.
See if you can hook Isaac into that terminal and get us some intel.
We've reached the terminal area now, and this is where the mission starts moving into the next stage. The objective itself is simple, but the enemies are going to keep trying to force us away from the terminal. I'm using available cover to control the approach and keep the enemies in front of me. If they begin pushing me from different sides, I'd rather fall back and reset the fight than stay in a bad position. That's one of the biggest things with solo escalation. You need to recognize when a position has stopped being safe. Just because you've got a few kills from one spot doesn't mean you need to stay there for the entire encounter. The objective is progressing now, so I'm keeping my eye on the entrances while continuing to clear the room. This is a good example why damage alone isn't enough. You can have a strong build, but if you don't control the room, the objective can still become difficult.
Looks like the best way to take the lab offline is the decontamination protocol.
That's just a fancy way of saying everything gets sterilized.
Isaac's not detecting the gas needed for the decom process. They must have disabled the line.
Hit the main fuel line in the basement. That should get it flowing again.
Open the fuel line. That should give the decom protocol enough gas to run.
This is where the run gets more serious now. We are heading into the decontamination area, and I am taking the higher position so I can see more of the room and control the main routes. High ground is extremely useful because it gives me better visibility. I can see the enemies before they reach the platform, which gives me more time to react. I am starting with the Lexington here and trying to remove the most dangerous targets first. I'm not simply aiming for whichever enemy is closest. I'm looking for anything that can force me out of cover or create the biggest problem if it's left alive. The striker pieces work best when I can keep the pressure on, but I still need to be careful about how aggressive I play. The idea is to keep landing shots, maintain control, and avoid exposing myself just for an extra kill. If the enemy is safely behind cover, there's no reason to stand in the open trying to finish them immediately. I can hold the angle, wait for them to move, and then punish when they appear. The Ceska backpack with Vigilance is also encouraging me to avoid unnecessary damage. If I can stay protected and keep that extra weapon damage active, the build performs much more brilliant. But of course, Vigilance doesn't mean I can stand and ignore the enemies. I still need to move when the position becomes unsafe. Quick reminder guys, this isn't just a damage showcase. The real test is whether the build can keep functioning when you're alone. The enemies are aggressive and every room gives you another problem to solve. The damage is important, but staying alive is the main challenge. The decoy is useful here because it gives me a little bit of breathing room when too many enemies start looking in my direction. I can deploy it, shift position, and create a new firing angle while the enemies are distracted. That is pretty wild, right? Sometimes a few seconds of distraction is all you need to turn a bad situation around. The lab is under control now, and we're moving on to the next section very soon. These quieter moments are useful because they give me time to prepare for the next fight. I'm checking the magazine, looking at the route ahead, and making sure I'm not entering the next room without a plan. It's very easy to treat these sections as downtime, but the next encounter can begin quickly. If the weapon isn't reloaded or the position is poor, the enemies can catch you before you're ready. So I'm taking a moment here to rest before moving forward.
Serious trauma detected.
Wait for it!
I guess you could call that clean.
Immediate medical assistance.
The mission is becoming more dangerous now as we progress. The enemies are taking more punishment and the open areas give them more opportunities to spread out. That means I need to be even more careful with target selection. If I focus on one enemy for too long, another can move around the sides and force me into the open. I'm constantly checking the minimap, listening for enemy movement and watching the entrances.
Construction site. If they haven't been disposing of the corpses properly, we could have another outbreak on our hands. In solo missions, having somewhere to fall back is important.
If you move into a position with no escape route, you can easily get trapped. It's better to think about where you're going to go next before the fight becomes chaotic. Enemies are starting to push more aggressively now, so I'm keeping the fights close to cover and avoiding the center of the room. I am using the MK46 as I need sustained fire against multiple enemies. The large magazine gives me more time to keep the pressure on, but I still don't want to waste ammunition into cover. There's no point standing in the open trying to force damage. I'd rather wait for a clean shot, preserve the magazine, and be ready when the enemies actually commit to push. This is one of those moments where the mission can quickly become chaotic. I'm trying to remove the targets closest to my position first, then deal with the enemies further away once the pressure is gone. If you focus on a distant enemy while something is already pushing your cover, you can lose control of the entire fight. The decoy gives me another option if the pressure becomes too high. I can use it to pull attention away. Break line of sight, move before the enemies completely surround me. I'm not using it to avoid every fight, I'm using it to make sure I can choose how the fight continues.
Medical assistance needed. Serious trauma detected.
Shit, how did they get there?
The Outcasts are using blood from an asymptomatic carrier. Someone who's infected but doesn't show symptoms. If I'm right, they're weaponizing green poison and turning it loose on the city. Destroy anything that might be contaminated.
I am also trying not to waste armor kits unless I really need them. If I can break line of sight and recover naturally, that gives me more options for the final fight. The last section in this part I'm most concerned about, so I want to arrive there with enough resources and ammunition. The fight is calming down now and we're nearly at the final objective. Up to this point, the build has handled the pressure well, but the final area is much more open. That means the enemies will have more space to spread out and I won't be able to rely on one doorway forever.
Outcasts. If she's an asymptomatic carrier, they've got an endless supply of the virus to play with.
Agent, your route out is going to take you into the DCD research library.
Hey, while you're in there, do me a favor. Recover everything you can on broad-spectrum antivirals.
Now heading into the library, and this is where the run can easily fall apart. The objective needs time to download, so we need to hold this area while dealing with multiple waves of outcasts. I'm taking the balcony because it gives me a better view of the atrium and lets me control the main approaches. The balcony is useful, but I can't stay here forever. If too many enemies begin attacking from different directions, I need to watch the flanks and move before the position becomes unsafe. This is where patience is really important. The objective is progressing, but there is no reason to panic. The first wave is manageable, and I'm watching for enemies that can force me out of cover. I'm using a Lexington to maintain pressure, but I'm not emptying the entire magazine. Checking what is happening around me. Fire, check the sides, reload behind cover, and then re-engage. That ribbon is helping me keep the fight under control.
Serious trauma detected.
The pressure is definitely increasing now. The enemies are reaching the atrium more quickly, and the open space makes it harder to keep every angle covered. I am prioritizing the enemies closest to the balcony and anything that can force me out of cover. Once the immediate threat is dealt with, I can turn back to the targets further away. This is where the situational awareness matters more than simply having a strong build. You need to know what is happening around you, not just what is directly in front of your weapon.
The DCD's data analysis lab is just ahead. See what data you can grab for Kelso.
The download is starting to progress now, but we're not at the finish line yet. I'm trying to avoid any unnecessary risk because there's no reason to throw away the run this late. The safest kill isn't always the closest kill. The enemy most likely to end the run is the rushes. I'm using the decoy again to pull attention away while I actually kill these flamethrowers. As you can see, they can set me on fire very easily. The decoy gives me time to deal with these enemies from a better angle. It doesn't solve the encounter for me, but it gives me breathing room I need. This is getting very close now, and the margin for error is becoming tiny. Armor is under pressure, enemies are still active, and I need to decide how far away I kill them from.
Demo transfer completed.
Clear to get out of there. The lab and samples destroyed. I don't think the Outcasts are going to be able to do much else from here.
Thanks for getting me that data to play with.
Hostiles are moving to your position. Suggest an egress.
This is the point where panic can make things worse. If I run out without checking the route, I can move straight into another group of enemies. I'm trying to break line of sight, cover, then re-enter the fight from a better angle. If I go down here, the reviver hive should give me a chance to get back into the fight, but I don't want to rely on it unless I have to. The aim is still to survive through good positioning and control the movement. One thing this run has shown me is that the build works best when I'm allowed to maintain a stable position. The striker pieces, the Ceska backpack, Vigilance, perfect Obliterate, and the echo bonuses all help build maintain pressure, but none of those replace good positioning. The damage is there, but I still need to create the opportunity to use it. The Outcast boss is now entering the fight, and this is the biggest threat in the final section. I need to respect their explosive attacks and keep enough distance to react. At the same time, I can't ignore the other enemies because they can surround me while I'm focusing on the boss. I'm looking for safe damage windows, putting pressure on the boss, and then returning to cover before the next attack comes through. This isn't time to stand still and empty the magazine without thinking. Reloading behind cover is much safer than trying to reload in the open. The boss is taking damage, but the fight is still dangerous. I'm keeping the movement controlled rather than running around randomly. The goal is to keep the enemies in front of me and avoid giving them a chance to attack from every direction. If the decoy is available, this is the perfect time to use it. Pulling the enemy's attention away for a few seconds gives me an opportunity to focus on the boss or move to a safer angle. I'm switching to the Lexington when I feel it's doing more of a better job than the MK46 is. So I'm using a bit of both. I'm keeping the enemies in front of me, staying aware of the explosive attacks. I'm waiting for the right opening. The one thing I need to be aware of, I have no armor kits, so I need to play this extremely safe and be very cautious of when I try and kill the boss. And there we have it. DCD Headquarters, Escalation Tier 10 completed. Completely solo. The main lesson from this run is that you don't need to play recklessly to complete difficult content. Use the high ground, control the angles, focus the dangerous targets first, and don't be afraid to reset a fight when the position becomes unsafe. The Striker prototype build gave me the damage and consistency I needed, while the decoy helped me create space when the enemies became too aggressive. The Reviver Hive was there as a safety net, but staying alive still came down to me making sensible decisions throughout the mission. That's what made the difference in this run. Drop a like if this solo tier 10 run has helped you. Subscribe if you want to see more straightforward Division 2 build guides, solo challenges and endgame gameplay from me. Let me know in the comments what build you're using for escalations. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.